Hi, and welcome to Prepping Essentials. We're back in the kitchen. I've just been topping up a few little items on my preps, and since some of it is long-term dried food, I'm going to get that into these vacuum sealed bags. So I thought I'd just do a little quick update video on what it is that I'm topping up on and why, and a general very short video. I've done lots previously on the subject of emergency long-term food storage. So I'll get cracking with the vacuum sealing. Just give me 5 minutes and then I'll come back to you. This is without a shadow of a doubt one of the best things that I've got in terms of prepping equipment. Food is so vital. I always double seal these, so if you'll just let me do that while I'm talking to you. Vacuum sealing, fantastic machine. It just prolongs the shelf life massively. I mean, things like rice, dried beans, pasta, they have a long shelf life anyway. But this just helps to give you that bit of an edge and to make sure that it will store, not indefinitely, but certainly for years. So yeah, I've been topping up on a few items. I also recently topped up on the vacuum sealed bags as well, just to be on the safe side. So I'll clear this vacuum sealer away and I'll just run through what little items I've topped up on. There isn't a great deal because A, I can't afford to go out and buy loads and loads of stuff all at the same time, and B, you don't want to start creating panic. Now we've got this COVID amongst us. I think the sight of somebody stocking up in their trolley might start a chain reaction, so please don't do that. But there's nothing wrong with topping up with a couple of items every time you do your shop, and indeed every good prepper should be doing that. So I'll get this out of the way and then we can have a little bit more of a chat about what it is that I've bought today. Okay, so we're back. Every time I go shopping, I always take a look to see what's actually on the shelf, and kind of a price check to see if things are going up and if they are, by how much. And you'll remember at the start of the old COVID crisis, the shelves pretty much got stripped, particularly of this, the first thing on my list, which is just your everyday long grain rice. You'll know from previous videos that I stock a lot of this. I've easily got a year's worth supply now of rice. It kind of goes with everything. It's very easy to prepare. The only thing you do need is some water. That's all you need. So it's your staple food, a bit like potatoes, I guess. And then you just add to it with whatever you have in your preps to make your meal. This is back on the shelves now, has been for a while. And to be fair, the price hasn't really gone up. You can still find this kilo bag or 2.2 pound bag for around 45-50 pence. So it still represents amazing value for your long-term food storage. So I don't top up every time I go shopping with rice. I'll top up every once in a while, and just as I've done today, I'll vacuum seal another kilo, sometimes 2 kilos, it depends. If I think that the shelves are looking a bit low, I'll get the extra one. So that's the rice. Next thing, which isn't something that I prep regularly, partly because it's not always there. Here in the UK, this is red split lentils. You can also get yellow split lentils. It's something that isn't a regular staple in the supermarkets. You have to generally go out deliberately looking for it in more specialist shops. They do have small bags in the supermarkets, not normally this size actually. They're normally a lot smaller than this. This is a kilo bag, and it's something that isn't particularly cheap. I forget what I paid for this now, but it was something like £1.80, £1.60, £1.80, something like that. It certainly isn't cheap like your rice, but again, it's a really good thing to have to bulk out your food or to make individual foods such as soups. So I do stock it, and when I see bags like this, the 1 kilo bag, occasionally they'll be on sale because it's not something that everybody buys, and if they've got an overstock they'll try and get rid of it by cutting the price. But whenever I do see it in these bags, particularly if it is on sale, then I will buy it, and this will just get vacuum sealed and go straight into my long-term preps. It's not something that I cook with on a day-to-day basis. More long-term dried foods. You'll have seen this in lots of my previous videos. It's just normal penne pasta. Again, this was one of the first things to go missing once the COVID panic set in. The shelves were stripped bare. It is back in, has been for a while, and to be fair, it's around about the same price as it was. I think this is generally around about 49 pence, so let's call it 50 pence for half a kilo. Clearly it's not as cheap as your rice, but it is still, I think, cheap at 50 pence a bag, even if it is only half a kilo. So again, I regularly top up with this. I can't say that I buy a packet every time I go shopping, because by now I'd have that much, it would be ridiculous. But it is something that I do add. I try and vary what it is that I top up on from week to week. So again, this will go into long-term storage. I've not yet found a way to vacuum seal this. I have experimented to death and wasted loads of vacuum sealing bags trying to seal this. I guess it's because of the tubes. It is tubular, so I don't think there's any way that the vacuum sealer, not the type I have anyway, is ever going to get that out. So I just don't bother now. It does have a long shelf life anyway. This is September 2022, so you've got 2 years just over of what the bag says shelf life is, and we all know that things like this, that best before date really is pretty meaningless. So again, that will go into the long-term dried food stores. Some other things while we're on the subject of dried food: sugar. I regularly pop a kilo bag of that away into my preps. I don't really use that much sugar because I only really use it in tea and coffee. I don't really use it for anything else. So a kilo bag for me does last quite a long time, and you can always go without a spoon of sugar in your coffee or tea. If it was a major grid down crisis and I ran out, it's not going to kill me if I can't have a spoon of sugar in my coffee, but it is going to kill me if I can't eat. But I do put that away in my long-term preps. Another thing that I put away is flour. I generally only put away plain flour because I don't generally bake cakes. If I am going to bake, it'll be bread, or I'll make pastry for pies, and you'll have seen me do that in a previous video, well, several previous videos. So plain flour is something that I do put away. Again, this is something that the shelves were stripped of when the COVID panic started. It's actually taken a while to get back. I suspect that there's more to this flour shortage than meets the eye. I don't think it's purely down to COVID. There are lots of YouTube videos that have been flying around for quite some time now about wheat shortage globally. So I suspect that the reason this hasn't come back properly into circulation still might have something to do with that general global shortage. You remember last year, and indeed the year before, there was a lot of harvests just failed because of weird weather, drought or flood. And I think we're now feeling the effects of that with wheat. Have a little look on YouTube and you'll see what I mean. So again, I'll vacuum seal that and that will go away into my long-term preps. Just as a side note on this, I've done a couple of cooking with your preps videos recently, and I think it might have been the sultana bread video that I did. I had some plain flour just in my normal kitchen cupboard, which I was going to use when I made that video. And I took it out of the cupboard, and the best before date, it was still well in date. And I opened the bag up, literally a fresh bag, looked inside, and there was lots of little weevils, some kind of insect in there. So this is, well, that was something that had come straight off the supermarket shelf, gone into my kitchen pantry, hadn't been used, hadn't been there for a long time. It was still in date by a long way, and yet it had insects in it. What I ended up doing to make that video was going up into my roof space where I've got my long-term preps, and I took out a vacuum sealed bag of flour, cut that open, and that had been in there, I think it had been there for just over a year in my preps, because every time I vacuum seal something I write the date on. Opened that up, and I'd kind of had a seed of doubt sown in my mind, having had that experience with flour that was in date and straight off the shelf in the supermarket. And lo and behold, I opened up my vacuum seal bag, absolutely fine. That is actually still in my cupboard. In fact, bear with me a second. It's this one, and it's absolutely fine still. Nothing at all in there. So it kind of just goes to prove the point about vacuum sealing. Not only does it preserve your food, but if there was anything in this bag, when I vacuum seal it, if there were any insects or eggs loitering in there, I hope there aren't, that would make short work of them. Lots of people do comment on videos. A couple have commented on mine about flour in particular, saying that when you get it from the supermarket, if you're going to store it, to freeze it first. I've seen lots of videos that tell you to do that. I've never personally done that myself, and to be honest, the only reason I haven't done that is because I have a very small freezer, which is always full of food, and I just literally do not have the space in my freezer to be putting in bags of flour or anything else for that matter, just for the sake of freezing it before I put it into long-term stores. My freezer space is extremely limited and it's full of food. So that's something else that will be going into my preps. In terms of things that I'm topping up on, and I always do top up on, every now and again I'll buy a couple of packets of this. Essentially it's tomato sauce to go with the pasta. These Tetra Pak or waxed carton style things, I used to store jars. To be honest, they don't stack very well. I know you can reuse the jars afterwards, but for the amount that I would be recycling those jars, I think to space save, I just use these waxed cartons. And they're fairly cheap, but I have noticed they are starting to go up in price recently, as is a lot of stuff, and we'll touch on that in a second. So outside of that, things I'm always storing, you'll know from previous videos, vegetables. I always top up on tinned vegetables. The shelf life on these is amazing, and the convenience of them also. Unlike the packet mash where you have to add water to mix, these are ready to eat straight out the can, and they give you some free water in there as well, as they do with the other vegetables. These, you might recall from a video quite some time ago, I used to store different types of vegetables, and I just found that it was taking up so much unnecessary space that I rationalised. I worked my way through all of those tin veg, and I just started buying this mixed vegetable in a can. Interesting thing with this, and again I've heard a few different stories on different YouTube channels about canned vegetables. I can't find these now. The supermarkets that I go to, they used to be readily available on the shelf. I have not seen any of these since the start of the year. There are some others, it tends to be peas that are on the shelf, but these tins of mixed veg have not been available, not since the start of this year, which kind of rings a bit of an alarm bell. Now I have heard different stories on different YouTube channels talking about canned vegetables. Again, there's the story about harvests failing and there being a shortage because of that. But during this COVID crisis, there's been talk about supply chains coming out of China, and the actual material to make the cans is in short supply. Which of those, if any, is true, I honestly don't know. But they do both make sense. But certainly I can say that here in the UK, these mixed vegetables in cans, this particular kind, where it's got a bit of everything in, not been available since the start of this year. As I say, some other canned vegetables are, mainly peas. The others, like carrots or beans, they're certainly not in there in the same quantity as they used to be. Other things that I top up on regularly, meals in a can. One of my favourite lunch or snack meals, baked beans and pork sausages. I always top up on these because I always use them, so I just rotate my stocks out. Price wise, these have stayed relatively stable. There has been a small increase, and the cheaper varieties I've noticed aren't as readily available as the more high-end brand ones are. So again, whether there's a problem with the supply chain or not, I don't know, but from time to time they're not on the shelf. So I do stock up whenever I see them on the shelf nowadays. A few other things to go at here in terms of meals in a can. These are all meat based. So chicken in sauce, I top up on those every now and again, not every week because these are not particularly cheap. I forget what price these are. I think they're £1.30, £1.40, something like that a can, which compared to your beans and sausages, which are about 60p or 50p a can, depending where you shop, you're talking double the price. And to be fair, in terms of meat content, there isn't that much meat in there. There's quite a bit of sauce, but you can see from the size of the can's not big anyway. So you're not getting a fabulous amount of meat. But they are very, very useful as a meal in a can, but they're also very useful if you want to make pies, for something a little bit different, to add a bit of variety if you were living on your long-term food stores, rather than just having as it is in the can. Similarly, there's a curry here, beef curry. There's lots and lots of different types of curry in a can. So if you have a can of this, you can eat it straight out the can if you want, or if you had problems heating your food, which is one massive, massive benefit of any canned food. You'll find that it is ready to eat out the can. So a can of that, a bit of your rice, and you've got a decent meal in there. And similarly this, which is chili con carne. So you've got your mince, your sauce, and your little red kidney beans in there. Again, it's already cooked, so you don't need to worry too much. But that, and again, some of your rice, and you've got decent meal. So you can, with your canned goods and your rice, you can make lots and lots of different recipes, again, to keep that variety. And of course, with it being meat in there as well, you're definitely getting your proteins. Finally, on the subject of meat, I stock various kinds. These are the ones that I mainly stock, and you'll have seen these in lots of videos. Corned beef in a can. If you're a regular viewer, you'll have seen me making corned beef hash. I think that was a couple of weeks ago now. 2-3 weeks, I can't remember. You can have it as it is, out the can, hot or cold, or as I did, you could incorporate it into a few other ingredients and make a little bit of a different meal, as I did. That has gone up quite significantly over the past 8 months, 10 months, and quite markedly since the COVID crisis started. Whether people suddenly started stripping the shelves of these, which they did to a degree, certainly, it did suddenly become limited in supply when we had the panic buying, as all canned meats did. But there's been a gradual increase on this over the past 8 to 10 months. You used to be able to get this just over £1 a can. The cheapest I can find it now is £1.45 a can. So that's quite a marked increase, to say that's in less than a year. The hot dogs, thankfully, they don't seem to be increasing in price. And there's a lot of haters out there when it comes to canned hot dogs. So they've never disappeared, really, off the shelf. The stocks have gone down a bit, but they've never really disappeared. And long may that continue. Finally, and one of my other favourites, is this bacon grill. It's a kind of a spam recipe meat. Again, this has gone up quite a bit in price over the last 8-10 months. And again, that was limited supply during the panic buying earlier this year. I think this used to be £1 a can, and you'll have seen lots of my videos last year telling people to buy this because at £1 a can it's a bargain. It's now up to, depending where you shop, £1.35, £1.45 a can. So again, quite a decent markup there over this past year or so. So that's it. Just thought I'd give that little reiteration video, I guess, just to remind people that this COVID thing is not over, and when we come out of that, assuming we do, everybody now realises that we're certainly in a recession, and we could very easily pop into a depression-style economic crisis. We're still not out of the woods yet in terms of numbers of people being out of work. The government bailout has managed to keep people in jobs. That finishes over the next month and a half. It's going to be interesting to see how many of those jobs remain after this bailout package finishes. So please don't ignore your preps. If you're not prepping, stuff is on the shelf. So do go out there and get started with your long-term food stores. And if you are a prepper already, just don't neglect the opportunity every now and again while it's still available to top up. If anybody's interested in the long-term dried food stores, and if they're new to that kind of thing or new to the concept of vacuum sealing, just have a spool back through my previous videos. There's lots there on the subject of food storage, but I couldn't resist this little temptation since I was topping up and since I was sealing some bags up. I'll be doing those in a minute when I finish this video. I just thought I'd share that with you. Well, that's it for this video. I hope there was something in there that was of interest to you. If you did like the video, please do click on the like button. Also feel free to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. As always, I welcome any comments, questions or suggestions you might have. What is it that is the biggest item in your long-term food stores? And are you finding that some items still aren't on the supermarket shelves, or perhaps they're in short supply? Or what about price? Have you noticed an increase this year? Let me know in the comment section below. But for now, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.